Welcome back to another episode of the SoundWorks Collection. I'm Michael Coleman. Today we're talking with the creative team behind Weird, the Al Yankovic story. Today we welcome Director Eric Appel, Supervising Sound Editor Anthony Vanchure, Sound Designer Mike James Gallagher, and Re-Recording Mixer Tony Solis. So Eric, before you found out about this project, what was your relationship to Weird Al, to his music? How much did you know about him?
Yeah, I mean, I remember we were a big MTV household when I was little. I had pretty young parents. So I think like 1984, Eat It coming on MTV. I remember my mom got me into like a lot of comedy. But I like distinctly remember I was a big Michael Jackson and Madonna fan. I mean, if you were watching MTV in those days, you had to be. And I remember her like showing me Eat It back then. My first when I really, really got into Weird Al was probably around sixth grade when Smells Like Nirvana came out. And that Off the Deep End album was like the first one that I owned on cassette tape and just, played the hell out of it for everyone that came anywhere near me.
Eric, can you tell me a little bit about this project? How did it come about? What was the inspiration for it?
The way that this film actually started was I did a short for Funny or Die in 2010. I made a fake movie trailer. A fake trailer for what ended up becoming a real movie. And in that trailer, Aaron Paul plays Weird Al. Olivia Wilde plays Madonna. So I had this idea. I wanted to do a fake movie, a fake biopic trailer about a biopic about someone who's still alive, but the story is completely false and so easily fact-checked. And then I had the idea. I mean, I was a big Weird Al fan, and I thought it would add like a really fun meta layer to it to have it be like a biopic parody that's about the guy that does parodies. But I didn't know Al. It felt like the kind of idea that something that he would have done himself. So I reached out to him through a mutual friend just to get his blessing. Pat Oswalt sent him an email for me, and within 20 minutes, he was like, "Hey, Al loves this idea. He wants your email address." I think I might have been 29 years old at the time. I all of a sudden get an email from Weird Al, and he's like, "I'd love to collaborate with you on this. Are you around later today to get coffee?" And that started my friendship and collaboration with Al. He showed the trailer at his concerts for during a costume change for about a decade. And then in 2019, I just woke up one morning to a random email from him that was like, I think it's time to turn this thing into a real movie. Do you want to write it together? And I was like, of course. So right from the jump, really to answer your question, we always knew that there was going to be, almost no truth to this biopic. And we just wanted to create the weirdest, funniest, most engaging biopic story we could, playing off the tropes of biopics, both, fictional biopics like Forrest Gump and, movies like Boogie Nights, and musical biopics. And just try to tell a really weird original story that, feels like one of those movies through the Weird Al lens.
That's great. Anthony, I feel like there's some also backstory about your relationship to Weird Al. What's your relationship to Weird Al? And there's some image of you from 10 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. So I like we all just said, children of the 80s, 90s, grew up loving Al. The first album I had of his was a compilation. It was called the Food album. And so it was just all of his songs about food. And I would just play that nonstop. And I loved it. Obviously, I was a giant fan of Al. I had seen the initial Funny or Die trailer, years ago when it came out, loved that. And then I was on a sales call meeting with the Formosa group, who I do a lot of work with. And they were like, it was the end of the meeting. They had talked about all these other projects. And then at the very end of the meeting, they're like, oh, and there's this low budget, a Weird Al movie. I don't know. And I had already read that they were getting ready to make this movie. And I was like, just give it to me. Let me meet with the crew, please. I don't care about the budget. Let's just say yes. And so, to bring up what you're mentioning, years ago, I went as Weird Al for Halloween. Like, my friend had an accordion, and he had brought it into work one day, and I was like, oh, and it just snapped at me. I was like, oh, I'll go as Weird Al for Halloween. It was like Halloween time. And so I got dressed up as Weird Al. So there's this great picture of me playing the accordion dressed as Weird Al. And so I sent that to the guys at Formosa. I sent it to like my sales team, those guys, producers, just going like, look, I love Weird Al. I really want to like make this work. Like, look how serious I am. Unbeknownst to me, they sent it to Eric and the whole to the Weird crew. And so I don't know if that's what got me the interview, but then I was able to then meet Eric. Eric and I had an interview. I was given the script and was able to watch a rough cut on the movie, and that's we had a great discussion about what Eric was looking for sound on the movie.
You know, it was great. It was great it honestly helped a little, I think, sending seeing that picture, because everybody that worked on the movie from, when we were in production, like everyone had a passion for Weird Al. Like it's a low budget project. A lot of people aren't getting paid their normal rates they would. And you have to find people that really care about what you're doing and are passionate about it. And I was so stoked to see a picture of Anthony dressed as Weird Al.
So funny. What about Tony and Mike? How did you guys fall into with this project, and first reactions to working on a project like this? I just feel like for any of us of maybe coming up through this time, it's like he's our hero in a weird way. I mean, it just seems like, why would I not want to work on this? Yeah, maybe with you, Mike. Start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think a picture of Madonna, Evan Rachel Wood as Madonna, had come out, and I had already, I think, even mentioned it to Anthony, like, oh man, we got to work on stuff like this, And so, my relationship with Weird Al, though, like, it's very similar to Eric's and Anthony's, but, I saw UHF in theaters, and also I have this weird memory, I don't even know if it's true, but like when the Fat video premiered on MTV, was like huge because it was his next Michael Jackson parody. And I remember sitting around with my family waiting for that premiere. And so that was like a big thing. And I recorded it on VHS and then watched it just constantly. So like that was always playing. But yeah, I mean, the next step in the process after Anthony, got the job as supervising sound editor was me and him frequently collaborate. And we've been working together we've known each other for over 10 years. So he immediately, I guess, brought me on the project, and we started talking about it.
That's so great. Tony, what is it like to mix a project like this? I feel like there's rules to mixing, but then also this one kind of like disregards rules.
I mean, there were absolutely no rules, to be honest. So I met Anthony just a few months before he pitched me this movie. He was dialogue editing on a movie I was mixing for Tom DeLonge, and then we went out and played golf, I think it was. And while we were mixing the other movie, he said, man, I think I might be doing this Weird Al movie. I was like, yo, that'd be really fun. In the back of my head, like, I came up as a musician, know all of Weird Al stuff. And I'm kind of like, that would probably be a really insane movie to mix. And of course, 2 months later, we're playing golf. And he's like, you want to mix it? Of course, he doesn't know my background at that point, of the musician and knowing Weird Al since the late 80s and 90s. And as soon as he sent me the rough cut, I knew that, okay, this is not a normal movie. It can't be mixed like any sort of, I can't mix it as a full-on action film. I can't mix it as a full-on comedy. It's just everything is its own little world. And I threw out everything I knew, and luckily collaborating with all of these guys, and having Eric on the stage with us and having Al on Evercast, it was just basically, let's all just throw things at it and see what works, what doesn't work, and kind of just throw it all away of like what is normal to do. Tons of fun.
I don't know why it was, but when I first found out about this film, for some reason I thought it was just like a straight ahead documentary. And then when we got to the pool party sequence, I realized, oh, no, this is so far from the truth. What was the discussion between you and Weird Al? How did you guys determine, just between fact and fiction?
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things in the movie that were inspired by facts. Like even the facts in our movie are not true facts. Like he did record my Bologna in a bathroom, at his, and when he was in college. The way we get there, he didn't have the guys in his band weren't his roommates, they weren't there in that bathroom with him. So we knew very early on that we wanted to, just sort of invent our own version of Weird Al that exists only in this, in the world of this movie. But we did talk about, you can't just like put your foot down all the way on the gas pedal right at the beginning of the movie. So it's fun that you had that experience where it's like, is this true? There's a certain line that we cross, late. Once you get to like, he's battling Pablo Escobar, it's like, oh, okay, wow. Yeah. If anyone thinks that there's any truth to that, I don't know what's going on. And then obviously when you get to the very end of the movie, that definitively tells you this is not true. But everyone has their a different moment where it will sort of dawn on them. It's really fun hearing from people like where exactly it is. Like it's there were discussions early on. I remember when there's that really his father in the movie, Toby Huss, beats up this accordion salesman played by Tom Lennon, and the beating is like so brutal and over the top. And we thought it was hilarious. I mean, like, we're so tickled by this cartoonish violence, but for a lot of people that were seeing the movie and didn't get what we were going for yet, it just seems brutal and not funny. So it's like really, yeah, it's very interesting to see how it plays in different rooms and depending on how much you know about Al.
Yeah, I think something that I was like looking at the soundtrack and obviously just going through the film, like you pull out key moments, that the songs that were pivotal to his career. And, by the time we get to like the Amish Paradise, I'm like, I remember exactly when and where that was in my life. And it kind of signifies like a departure of, like the 80s have left and 90s, and we're into a different time for him. But how did you guys decide which songs to use? And then did you guys re-record those? How did you come up with these new versions?
Yeah, we decided that we were going to re-record them because, in each scene, the song's being played like in a different venue. My Bologna, had to be real stripped down at first. Then we put a backing band behind it, which like in the real version doesn't even exist. We had to have the I Love Rocky Road sound like it was in a bar. So, it was clear early on that we should, go into the studio and re-record all these songs. How we came up with the order of the song, I mean, we kind of followed his career, like what were the big hits, what songs had music videos in what order. And then at a certain point, for one, we kind of just ran out of time in the movie, and we kind of depart like we hit this point once you get into the Escobar stuff and all that, where it ceases to be a musical biopic for a little stretch and just turns into an action movie. So, and then by the time, at the end, we just felt Amish Paradise was such a huge hit for Al. We felt like that was a really perfect, that sort of that's the next big hit. Even though it came a decade after the time period in the movie. We had the movie in 1985. I think that song came out in 97. But
well, that's the best part is that then Coolio's in the audience getting mad. Like, that doesn't make sense, but it works.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. In my head, I was always like, Coolio's mad because I don't know. He has the idea for this song.
Yeah.
And Al just got there first, He's like,
I guess with that being said, I mean, you knew that obviously like Daniel Radcliffe would be performing to these, sync tracks on set. You'd have to recreate the environment. So how did you guys go about creating the sound design of, I'm thinking of, the first one, like in the club.
I hear those ice cream bells and I start to drool.
This guy needs some help.
Keep a couple quarts in my locker at school. Yeah, but chocolate's getting old. Vanilla just leaves me cold. There's just one flavor good enough for me. Yeah, me. Don't give me no crummy teaspoon. I know what I need. Baby, I love Rocky Road.
Well, I think early on, Eric and I had like a spotting session to discuss, what he was looking for in each of these scenes and how we wanted those sounds to sound. And so it's kind of scene by scene. So like we say, the Rocky Road scene where they play in a dive bar, that's its own, okay, we got to make the dive bar sound divey and grimy and have beer bottles and angry people. And then, now he's playing in an arena. Okay, well, we got to make that sound like a big arena crowd. So, each scene had its own fun challenges to make those moments sound like where they're supposed to. Having the original or having those stems really helped Tony to mix all those musics and all that music in the environment. It was really fun. I think, we had a lot of fun on each of these scenes. One of my favorite things was for Rocky Road. We had a great loop group, Sue Boyage in a Loop Out Loud. She's amazing. I've worked with her on multiple projects. She had her loop group do. We had them come in and record a bunch of fun stuff for the bar. So there's a lot of like fun bar chatter, and like you really hone in. You can hear like funny things being said in the crowd and stuff.
While we were working on that scene, Anthony was having a birthday party. And so I brought my recording setup to the birthday party, and me and Anthony had a plan to round all our friends up and sing Rocky Road.
I love Rocky Road, so have another triple scope with me. I love Rocky Road, so won't you go by half a gallon, baby?
And one cool thing I did with it is I had just like a stereo microphone on my iPhone, and I was recording all our friends, probably like 30 friends, singing the song, and I was just like running around them, getting this like super cool stereo dynamic recording. And it makes it sound, you'd think it would sound crazy, but really it just sounds like a really cool recording. So I layered all that stuff and put it in, and that's who you hear singing the song along with Daniel Radcliffe.
We also had Al record the audience at one of his concerts. He was on the road, and we had to in the big arena scene, the audience had to be chanting no. We were like, oh man, that's got to be so many. It needs to sound huge.
Is that what you want? No! Is that what you want? No! Is that what you want?
No! So Al was on tour the whole time we were mixing the movie, so he was remoted in every day. So Al was there every day for the mix, but he was just in a different city. And so, we weren't struggling, but Al was just very like, oh, this doesn't sound like the big arenas like I'm used to hearing. And so just like offhandedly, I was like, oh, well, can you record your audience tonight doing it? And everybody laughed. I don't know if you guys remember this. Like everybody like laughed, and then like it settled. And then Al was like, wait, was that a serious request? And I was like, yes. And so then he recorded that for us that night. And
it was in the newspaper in Nebraska or wherever it was. It was like a big story. Like,
I have the headline. It says, Weird Al turns audience into movie stars during impressive Friday concert.
All of these scenes where the band is playing. One of the big directions that I gave these guys from the jump was that, like, I don't want this to sound like a comedy movie. And I think just across the board visually and with our, the actors, the performances, I wanted to lean into really making this feel like an awards contender, to feel like the big biopic that would be at the Oscars, at the end of the year. So for all of these, the bar scene and the concert scene, it was really like leaning into the realism of these locations and making it just feel alive and elevated with sound.
I remember it was literally the first thing that Anthony had told me is that Eric wants all of this to feel like it's in the space that it's in. My first question back was, do I have stems? And as soon as he said, Al re-recorded a bunch of the stuff, I knew that I'm going to have vocals, bass, guitars, everything separated out. I had the accordion on the left hand and right hand on separate stems. And once we got on stage, since we were mixing in like an immersive, like we were originally mixed it in Atmos, and it just allowed me to put all that stuff in the proper space to just all have that minute granular flexibility to just be able to get Eric and Al what it is that they were asking for, which is like make it sound like a divey bar, like the drums are actually coming out of the PA, that kind of stuff. Big arena, Amish Paradise sounding nice and big and fat. And my favorite one, which was another one rides the bus, because that's all outdoor and it needs to sound kind of like dry, but also not fall flat completely when you compare it to the rest of the movie. So it just, it was a really awesome ask from Eric, I would say, and Al, to be like, make it all sound like it's there and not just a music video.
There's a part where Daniel Radcliffe throws his phone right before the LSD sequence. He's talking to his mother and he gets pissed off and he throws the phone, and we had thrown a cat growl, like kind of run away inside the house. And we kept that in there, and Eric was just immediately like, no. We're taking that out. Yeah.
I did say I love it. I was like, I love it. I love the cat sound. Like, it's just not this. It's not this movie. Yeah. It's very Weird Al, and it's,
I mean, we would push and pull in different ways, though. Like the guacamole eating the chips sound and all that stuff that. We would just like give and take of like, we don't have that super cartoony thing happening, but we're also then pushing in other ways that are hilarious at times. So
yeah, that to me, Rainn Wilson playing Dr. Demento is just like, it's the role of his lifetime. I'm just like, I don't know anyone else that could play that character, even as obscure as a character that might be for some people. It's such a funny little moment. Can you guys talk about that LSD sequence? Because I feel like it was one that, like, this is a comedy. It is maybe a biopic, but even so, like, it kind of like it does lead where the story leads next. Is kind of like, it's funny how you use these zany moments to kind of like, oh no, that's connective tissue to Al's story and how it got him there. So yeah, maybe Eric, like, when did LSD idea come up?
We always wanted to have this drug sequence from very, very early on with Al. We talked about, I think it was an LSD burrito at one point, but we ended up settling on guacamole. And, you know, it was at first when we wrote it, it was just, it was going to be like, this is where he comes up with "Eat It," right? And I think that the original version of the script, the end of that scene, or it was sort of like he didn't understand what it was just like a funny, crazy drug sequence. And I think it spit him out at the end. He like wakes up and they're in a diner. That's what it was. And that's where Demento's like, here, eat your food, just eat it. And that's where he comes up with it. I can't remember. Somewhere along the writing process, we decided to give the scene a lot more meaning and just make it this battle between good and evil, and like, you know, his fears about what his father thinks of him, and Demento being this like spiritual mentor, and the industrial shredder, and sort of wanted to go for this. The temp score that we had in there was Duel of the Fates from Star Wars.
That's right.
And,
oh man,
yeah, and that was sort of like, you know, it needed this big. I wanted it to be this like Lord of the Rings, you know, Revenge of the Sith, like this big epic moment. And then these guys like really pushed it there with the sound. It like that scene elevated in such a huge way once these guys got their hands on it.
He's losing his power over you. Keep going. I can't.
Maybe you should try a little Captain Crunch.
What?
Raisin Bran, perhaps?
No, I don't want no Captain Crunch. Don't want no Raisin Bran.
Eat it. Just eat it. Eat it.
I don't understand.
Eat it.
Don't you make me repeat it.
What's happening to me?
Now you must die in order to be reborn.
No!
My favorite moment is something that I thought Eric had done intentionally, but like Dr. Demento taps on the bowl twice. And just immediately when I saw that in the rough cut, I was like, I'm putting the opening notes from Eat It, Beat It there. And I remember you actually heard that for the first time on stage, Eric, and we hadn't told you that we were going to do that, but it just worked so perfectly.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that was a great moment. It was like, whoa, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, it was great too because our composers, Zach and Leo, who did a killer job on the score, we were able to get their music a little bit while we were cutting. So Mike and I were able to tune some of our effects stuff to, in pitch with their score, with their actual music, which helped designing and editing a lot. We could push those sounds further.
Yeah, the industrial shredder going on in that scene is very tonal, and I just had it pitched to the actual notes of the score. And then when me and Tony were sitting at the board mixing this scene, it was a lot of fun, by the way. And Tony did an awesome job. We mixed it in Atmos, so that was an Atmos scene right there. But yeah, he was able to crank those sound effects because nothing was clashing, and it's a really intense moment. I also love how it just almost goes to silence right at the peak of it.
The way that it was put together by these guys, once I got it to mix, it was the first time in the movie where we were going to really flex the muscles of the speakers and just kind of it's probably the loudest moment in the movie, most likely. And the organization of how Mike put everything together, and I felt like I had unlimited headroom because it was really thick score, it was really thick effects. There's dialogue that you need to hear that's all crazy affected, and it was just sort of oh my god, how loud do we want this to be? Let's just keep pushing here and pulling there and pushing here. And then I remember I just did it as a test that once we got to the moment where it went down, I just pulled down one of my masters of just what would it be like if we just went to absolute silence instead of having a little drone or a little bit of lightning or something like that. And it was just so effective. I think we spent the longest on that scene during the whole mix because we just kept watching it over and over to make sure that everything was hitting right. And then we got new VFX and all that, and total dream.
Eric, at what point did you guys decide to have this diner fight scene? I just feel like it, once again, it goes almost to the point of this is crazy, and then it goes to this is fucking crazy. What the hell is going on? I'm pretty sure Daniel Radcliffe is doing all his. It feels like he's doing all the stunts. It feels like it's him, or it's very good choreography. So yeah, how did that come about, that scene?
Yeah, he did. He actually did a lot of the fighting himself. We had rehearsal days for him. That was, luckily we shot the movie in 18 days, which is insane. But we did get some band rehearsal days and we got some stunt rehearsal days for him, which made it doable. It's funny. That's another scene where, from our initial meeting, when we talked about turning this into a movie, Al and I went out for coffee one morning just to throw out some preliminary ideas that we both had. And Al said, I want there to be a part in the movie where out of nowhere, I turn into John Wick in a Hawaiian shirt. and he's like, it would be awesome if I took down Pablo Escobar. And I was like, that's so random and hilarious. Why? And Al was like, I just binged all of Narcos. And it's he's like, I just have Escobar on the brain. I'm like, that's hilarious. So it, the idea to have him kind of go off the rails and be crazy, came from the beginning. It was just, it took a long time to make it make sense for the story, we wanted it to feel, Al wanted it to feel like it comes absolutely out of nowhere. And I was like, all right, well, it can't just be this random scene. Otherwise it's going to be the first things studios tell us to cut when we try to sell this.
You are literally the only thing I have left in the world, and if anything happened to you, I don't know what I would do.
No! Relax, Mr. Yankovic. We only want to borrow your girlfriend. Just stay calm, and nothing will happen to you.
Oh, please, sir. Please. Whatever you do. Don't hurt me.
So we just had to make that whole, action movie sequence bulletproof by loading it with payoffs. And it all leads to Al learning this thing about Madonna and getting his heart broken. but it just comes in this like insanely surprising, you know, at his lowest point, he can suddenly fight. And I remember we justified it to ourselves as like, well, his dad beat that guy up early on, like, like he has it in him.
Like it doubles down when we get to the jungle scene, and like now it becomes like, I don't know if it's Predator or like what movie I'm watching, but like talk to me about, okay, if you shot this in 18 days, I'm sure you didn't travel to like the Amazon. So where did you shoot the jungle? And then obviously, how did you guys even source the material to use for the jungle scenes?
Yeah, the jungle was that was actually one of our hardest locations to figure out. We were trying to, because we couldn't go too far. It was 18 days, and we had to put that jungle stuff with something else. Like it wasn't big. We couldn't build an entire day at the jungle. So I think after we did that jungle sequence, we went to like the restaurant where him and Madonna, where he gets the phone call about Michael Jackson recording Beat It. We ended up shooting at the Warner Brothers jungle. The famous jungle where Pee Wee Herman swings the bike over the lagoon. We found this like great military vehicle and got a couple Spanish speaking. Actually, you know what? No, the stuntmen did not speak Spanish. The guys that. So we had to dub their voices.
That brings us back to our great loop group. Yeah, our loop groupers.
Thank you, loop group.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really saved us.
Espérate. No es un hombre. Es un hey boy. This'll do.
But yeah, so it was like just a little half day shoot. We had a stunt there that kind of didn't. It took a little too long, but originally Al drops out of the trees behind them and then pops up and breaks a guy's neck. But it just, like, that's the thing. With 18 days, we had time to shoot that stunt twice. The timing never quite worked out, so we had to kind of cut around it. But yeah, just insane that we did that we, we're in the jungle in the morning, and then in the afternoon we're at the restaurant at the Van Nuys golf course with Josh Groban as a waiter.
What a day.
Okay, so that's what I want to ask you guys next is, how do you determine all these cameos? Like and that's like the wonderful thing about this type of film is that it's like the Muppets maybe are the only other like type of film that like you expect it. And when I started, I was like, Lin-Manuel, like, what the hell are you doing in this film? Yeah. How did that come about? Was that Weird Al's inclination? Or how did you cast it?
I'll tell you, first, Lin-Manuel Miranda was an incoming call. Lin-Manuel Miranda reached out to Al, and he was like, let me be in your movie, dude. I want to be in your movie. Here are the dates that I'm going to be in Los Angeles doing press for like the Oscars or something. And it's like, all right, we can slot him into this doctor role, which will be perfect because it's right at the beginning of the movie. Everybody else, basically everybody else, all the other cameos were like from Al's, Christmas card mailing list. He has a lot of friends and a lot of, what's fun is like all of these people that become friends with him. It's like you start as a fan of his and then become his friend. So everyone from Jack Black, like I'm sure Jack Black was a Weird Al fan before he met Weird Al. So it's incredible that, Al would reach out to these people personally, like, oh, let's see if Conan O'Brien, Shot in the Dark, will Conan O'Brien play Andy Warhol? And 5 minutes later, Al texts me and he's like, Conan's in. Can you believe it? It's so funny how it happened like that. But people were, nobody said no. Everyone was very into it.
That's the Yankovic bump, man.
That's true.
That's the Yankovic bump.
Real Yankovic bump.
There's a cameo I want to mention that people might not realize, but it's actually during the pool scene, which is full of cameos. But in Another One Rides the Bus, there's Music Mike Kieffer doing the hand farts behind the whole track. And,
Musical
guys,
Mike, he did the original hand farts, like in Al's original songs.
I'm trying to do
it.
And
yeah, we got him out of retirement and recorded him during the mix.
You can hear it obviously in the song and in the scene, and that scene very early on too. There's that is a section where there's a lot of funny sound effects and stuff sprinkled throughout the whole performance, and so that was I remember very early on that was important to Eric and Al. Was like, okay, we got to make sure that these sounds are hitting the right tone.
Another one rides the bus. Another one rides the bus, and another comes on, and another comes on. Another one rides.
What's it? The vibraphone,
flexitone. The flexitone.
Yeah. So Conan plays it. You see Conan playing it on screen, but I think Al wasn't digging the sound, and so Eric during the mix. Remember, you ordered a flexitone.
I bought one on Amazon. I bought a flexitone on Amazon, and then like all day I was practicing it.
Another one rides the bus.
And then we went to record it, and Al was on the monitor, and he's like, "Yeah, it's not right." It's like, what? I've been practicing this thing all day. He's like, no, it has to be longer. It goes all the way up and down. It's like it's like 2 full measures or something like that. And so yeah, I had to do a little more practicing, and then finally, when I got it right, we all hold our breath and look at Al, and what did he say? Adequate or something like that.
Exactly. It's adequate.
Yeah.
Acceptable. Wow, that must be like it was acceptable and adequate were his two, like, if you got that from him,
that's an approval.
We got it. Yep.
Yeah.
The hardest sound to get on the entire movie is something people wouldn't expect, but it's when Dr. Demento wants to adopt Weird Al. And right after that, he slowly squeezes a bicycle horn or a clown horn, and it's supposed to make this sound, like a sad sound. And like sad trombone or something like that. But what did I threw? That's where I put the slide whistle in. So I had mentioned before that I put a slide whistle in there, and Eric was just like, no. It actually needs to feel real. And if you've ever squeezed a bicycle horn that slowly, you realize it just goes, it just makes air sound. But yeah, I mean, me and Anthony were on the case, and we tried vuvuzelas and trombones, and actually what ended up it got it didn't get approved again like 2 or 3 times, and then we're like, oh shit, we really got to do something.
And I think and at this point too, we're running out of stage time. Like the mix has to be
done. It's the end of the mix.
We're like,
we were on the big stage.
Yeah, and we're like, we got to get this approved, and so Mike goes back to the drawing.
Well, board, actually, Jamie Kennedy, who was the picture editor, said during the offline edit, our amazing picture editor, during the picture edit, they had used a dog toy for it, and I was like, all right, that's it right there. So I just took their dog toy idea that they used in the offline edit, and then I expanded on it with some more sounds. And then, lo and behold, I actually did 5 versions that morning. And I think number 3 got approved. And I do remember
it got an adequate from Al, right?
Yeah, but that adequate, it got applause. So everyone applauded.
Yeah, but I have to say seeing this, I was lucky enough to see this with multiple audiences at different film festivals, and being in a room with 1,200 people laughing at that sound effect, it makes, it's all worth it. It's all worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing that we have those challenges. It's fun. It's just it's funny to think that one sound took the hardest sound in the movie was probably that little sound. Yeah.
Eric, what have you taken away in terms of trying to tackle, not trying, I mean, you've been doing it for a while, comedy. Comedy is not for everybody. Timing, pacing, tone, these all play into, like you're saying, having an audience react to a gag. When it falls flat, you're like, why is it not working? So what have you taken away from this film? How does comedy relate to you now?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's so subjective. Even with this movie, it's still so subjective. There's going to be people that are expecting it to be like a zanier, like a Weird Al video, like Naked Gun or Airplane or Mad Magazine come to life. For this movie, it was just really sticking to our guns and staying true to this tone, which was, serious biopic. It's like a Weird Al song. It sounds just like the original song, but the words are different. We wanted this to feel and look like a prestige film, but the words are all different. There's stretches of this movie you could watch on mute and it's like, oh, this is just a musical biopic. It's just that, it's about the most ridiculous thing. So I think that's it. And I mean, for me with comedy, it's always been, I'm just doing what I find funny. And I hope that resonates with audiences. And, currently it is resonating with audiences. And critics. And critics. And critics. Yeah. That's right. And the critics are never wrong about anything. That's true. Just trying. I mean, Al and I were just trying to. We laughed a lot on set, and it's just about making each other laugh and hoping that it finds the right audience.
Maybe for each of you, let's start with Tony. Maybe a favorite scene or moment, an Easter egg, something that is subtle that you guys slipped in there, or what's a favorite moment for you?
Subtle. I mean, there wasn't too much subtle in this movie, but I think honestly the acid trip sequence for me as like a mixer and just as like I love cinema and movies so much that I could see the amount of effort that these guys put into writing this stuff. I saw how smartly it was done. I saw how amazing they did for just 18 days. It's like there was something about that scene that kind of culminated all of that together for me, of just sort of like, holy crap, this is like, we're all in this and enjoying the hell out of it, and we're laughing together and we're like a unit. And that, since we spent the most amount of time on that scene, it was just incredibly rewarding to get to the finish line with it. And just sort of like all the departments were firing on full blast to get that one done. So, and obviously Mike's little addition of the beginning notes was just like one of those moments on stage. Yeah, that synclavier sound where he educated me that I had no idea that was actually just a simple dong.
It's a preset on the synclavier. Yeah.
Yeah. And once we flew that in, it was something about like, in my brain, that whole sequence all the way up to the egg just brought it together for me personally, that I was like, all right, I don't care how long this takes. We could be 14 hours a day. Like, I'm going to put everything I got into this. So thank you, Eric.
That's awesome. What about you, Anthony?
Yeah, we mentioned having my friends over for a birthday barbecue and recording them singing Rocky Road. That's like one of my favorite Easter eggs that I tell people. Another one, this is a silly little, I don't even know if you call it an Easter egg. There's just a very funny loop performance. In the very beginning, when you first see Daniel as Al walking up through the park, and there's people in the park and there's this little hot dog stand. There's this one little loop group line where somebody's going, 10 hot dogs, please. And it just makes me laugh every time. It's such a small little note. But those are like some of my favorite little moments in the movie. But I would say like one of my favorite scenes to work on. And like we've said, there's so many scenes that are every little section of this movie is fun to work on. You're like, oh great, we get to do this scene today, or we get to do this scene, or we're working on this. So every scene I enjoyed working on. But I think we had a lot of fun on the diner fight scene. Was pretty fun for like a multiple reasons. Like Mike designing great like fighting and like gun sounds throughout that scene, and then just we recorded, Daniel came in to do ADR. And so a lot of that production audio on the day gets lost or is just not properly recorded. So we had Daniel come in and re-record all of his fight efforts and sounds. And like, I had so much, he killed it. I mean, Eric and I were there on the ADR stage, and I remember just being like, wow, this guy's a pro. And it's like, oh yeah, he's Daniel Radcliffe. He's been doing movies his
entire life,
his entire life. But so it's a funny moment when he slams a guy's head in on the little panini press. We have this great, awesome sizzling sound, but then Daniel during the ADR just goes, die, and like I think we all just like
so brutal.
Cracked. It's so funny. And Daniel came up. Daniel just did that like improv, and it was just like that's going in. And so like just working on that scene and having. So if you watch it again, people, and you'll hear Daniel going die to this guy that he's got in the TV press, and it's
Order up.
Mike, what about you?
In the first few minutes of the movie, it stops. The tape stops and it rewinds for like 15, 20 seconds. And what Jamie Kennedy and Eric, is it Peter Dudgeon? Dudgeon, is that his last name?
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it?
I
guess like,
so.
Okay. Jamie Kennedy and Peter Dudgeon, who Jamie Kennedy was the picture editor and Peter Dudgeon is the assistant editor on this movie. They had temped in some sounds of like reversed music, and that ended up sounding the best music. But I actually did some experiments where I actually took the reels and the dialogue and reversed it and stuff like that. It sounded like crap though. But anyway, the music being reversed sounded great. So I was like, okay, so what music can I put in this spot? And I'm a massive Nine Inch Nails Trent Reznor fan. And the song that I chose to reverse in that section is Weird Al's style parody of Nine Inch Nails, which is called Germs. And it's a style parody of Terrible Lie and Closer. Terrible Lie. Yeah, Terrible Lie and Closer. And so the song that you hear that's reversed in that moment, and it's been transformed. I mean, you can't tell.
You can't tell. You can't pick it out. Yeah. But.
And Eric, I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't. That's amazing. I love hearing. That's incredible. I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, I beefed up that song a lot. There's a ton of layers, but that main kind of thing that you can grab onto that sounds like rewound tape is that Germs style parody. So that's my big personal Easter egg that I did. And the other really fun Easter egg I want to mention, because we've got the whole crew back together, is when you first hear the beat of Amish Paradise come in, you hear Al's dad and Al's mom arguing, or they're like yelling at him. And we realized that some of the dialogue was in sync with the music. And so Anthony, Tony, and Eric, we actually nudged the dialogue to be in sync with the music. So next time you watch the movie and you hear it, you'll actually hear that it sounds like mom and dad are rapping along to the beat.
It sounds like Al's dad is rapping. No, yeah, because you hear the drum intro come into Amish Paradise. Nothing gets through to you.
And I think we
just, wait, that was funny. Shoot, wait, even more Easter eggs were the whole group's here. At the end of Rocky Road, remember Al kept giving a note that he wanted everybody shouting "Scoop with me" at the end, and we didn't quite have that. And so we actually, I don't know if you guys all remember this, we like set up a microphone on stage, and we all stood around the microphones yelling "Scoop with me."
Scoop with me!
Like I said in the beginning, a film I didn't know I needed, but I want in my life. I just feel like this one kind of checks all the boxes. So yeah, congratulations, Eric, on this, of taking a small idea and pitching it and having it see the light of day. Yeah, it's a huge achievement. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Mike, Tony, Anthony, Eric, congratulations, you guys, on a really fantastic film. For anyone who hasn't seen it, check it out. It's streaming now on Roku. And tell your friends. I feel like it's like Weird Al. Like, I got it on a cassette tape from a friend. I didn't know what the hell I was getting into, but I was really happy I went through it. So yeah, congratulations, you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.